What's up YouTube? We're here on Annoying Waffles, my level 94 Necromancer Witch Summoner thingy. And we're going to do a quick build guide slash character showcase, whatever you want to call it. So, this character is designed to be very fast, have really good cast speed, and also have good minion damage and good defenses, all at the same time. So that being said, let's go through and look at our skill tree. Start with the Ascendancies. We pick up Mistress of Sacrifice for some skill effect duration and minion damage there, and then this increased skill effect duration, and then your offering skills also affect you. So that what that allows you to do is to use these handy little gems here. Flesh Offering, which says gives minions increased attack, cast speed, and movement speed. You get that bonus as well when you use your offering. So you can use Desecrate or on a corpse of an enemy, and you can cast Bone Offering or Flesh Offering. Flesh Offering gives us a ton of cast speed, which is great. And then if you use Bone Offering, which is the defensive version here, see how it changed from red to white? If we look at our stats, if we use this Bone Offering, Bone Offering, it gives us a huge amount of block and spell block. Which means that suddenly we're very tanky with very little change in what we're gearing or treeing for. We just get to be tanky or fast, depending on the situation, right? So that being said, that's a nice node. Spirit Eater over here, minions deal 30% increased damage, and Desecrate creates 2 additional corpses, and then you get a little bit of attack and cast speed for each corpse consumed recently. So if you're in a map clearing general speed, you know, doing your thing, and you keep consuming corpses, you keep getting more and more cast speed, which is here, I think? Yeah, so if you keep doing it, if I had more corpses, I could keep piling this number higher and higher, which is great for speed clearing maps, because you're going to keep exploding corpses. Every time you hit a new pack, you just pop another one, and it gives you more and more cast speed. So that's awesome. It also gives you increased damage if you consumed a corpse recently, so if you want to do a damage dealing SRS Necromancer type thing, you could do that as well. This also gives you some cast speed and minion damage. Then we go through this middle part for Commander of Darkness. Get more cast speed, minion damage. Then you get auras you cast grant 10% increased damage to you and allies. So the more auras that you have on, the more damage you do overall. And your allies, which includes your minions, deal more damage as well. Then you also get attack and cast speed for auras as well. And then allies affected by you and you have 20% all res. So that allows us to gear a little bit easier. As you can see, I'm ridiculously overcapped for cold res. It's kind of annoying actually. I'm trying to drop it, but it can't. So that's that one. And then Beacon of Corruption. This one is kind of an aesthetic choice for me. You don't need this. You can probably go Fleshbinder if you want to get zombies, but I prefer this one. What this does is it gives your minions the ability that when they die, they drop a Caustic Cloud on their death that deals 10% of their max life as cast damage per second. So like, whenever your SRSs expire or get killed, or your golems or zombies get killed, this leaves a cloud on the ground that's relatively large, and it degens everything in that cloud, which is great. And you also get this node for minion damage. If you don't want this node because it lags you or whatever, you can always just pick up this node as well. Like this node here and this node here instead of Beacon of Corruption. Gives you some minion life and minion damage. It's great. But let's go ahead and start with the tree. You start off as Witch. I'm not giving a leveling guide, this is just what I have. Go through the ES nodes. If you don't want the ES, you can take the mana regen nodes. Grab Deep Wisdom and then come up through here for minion life, minion damage, minion life, max zombies and skeletons, more minion damage, and some cast speed over here. And you come up for the Flask nodes because we're CI and Flask nodes are OP. And then you pick up Jewel Sockets. We'll talk about Jewels after the tree. And then I picked up these Spell Block nodes and this 40% increased energy shield from Equipped Shield, which is huge when you're wearing a really good shield like I am. That's an extra 220 energy shield out of your shield or something like that. And you get 5% additional spell block from this one, which is pretty large. So you get 7% spell block out of these 3 points. That's nice. Then of course you go up, grab another jewel, get CI, get the ES behind CI, and pick up Influence so you can reserve more mana and make your haste and hatred and all those discipline type things stronger. Come on down here, grab Dreamer for mana and mana regen, and then grab Leadership for more aura power and reduced reservation. And then you grab Harrier for attack, cast speed, movement speed, attack speed because we're using shield charge, and then more Jewel Sockets. Go through the Scion ES wheel, grab Elemental Equilibrium because we're using Tempest Shield, which procs it every time it hit. Every time you block, you get to give them minus 50% fire and lightning. My bad. Okay, so then that gives you... Sorry, when you hit with lightning with your Tempest Shield, it gives enemies minus 50% resistant to fire and to cold. So if you're using Hatred, you get to do more damage with that, and then your SRS gem itself, they deal half fire damage, so that gives you kind of a dual penetration right there. Then you come down here, you pick up some skill effect duration with Potency of Will, Shaper for some life regen and mana regen, and then more life regen and another jewel socket. And then you get minion damage, minion attack, and cast speed, and Grave Pact for more minion damage and more zombies. Come up here, grab another jewel socket. You grab quick recovery for some life regen and mana regen and ES, converting it to ES with energy from within. And then you go up here, get another jewel socket, grab minion instability. So what this does is when your minions die, they also deal, instead of just this Beacon of Corruption Chaos Cloud, they also drop, or they explode and deal 33% of their maximum life as fire damage to surrounding enemies. So this is another way to add more damage to your clouds whenever they get killed. Like if, say, you're fighting Vol and he slams the ground and he kills like 50 SRS. Normally he doesn't take any damage from that, but with this, they explode and he takes a large amount of fire damage and cast damage. And then you take more minion damage nodes and minion attack and cast speed nodes. Come on over here and grab Zealot's Oath. All of our life regen stuff from Shaper, from this, from these nodes eventually, from Sancticity. It applies to our energy shield as well, so I don't like being ES without some sort of little bit of passive regen. So with the nodes that I've taken, I have 415 ES regen per second, which isn't that much, but it adds up pretty quickly. Like you can stand in degens without worrying about dying or fire and things like that. And it gets stronger with, well, if I had my boot enchant, it gets stronger when I get hit. You get another 2% on your boots. And then you go down here, grab some more minion life, minion damage, cast speed, strength and intelligence, some dex and cast speed, movement speed, which I needed. This gives you a bunch of ES and some life regen, so that applies because of Zealot's Oath. Then you pick up some more mana and reduced mana cost of skills. Light of Divinity gives us a little bit of cast speed and another jewel socket over here. And then 2 more jewel sockets. We're noticing a theme here. We have a lot of jewels. Jewels are like one of the only ways to get minion damage out of your tree except for the minion nodes, and there's only like 3 of those, so 4 of those, I'm sorry. So jewels, we're looking for stats like cast speed, attack and cast speed, minion damage, chance to block with shields, maximum ES. These are all the same. What's this one? Yeah, maximum ES. Intelligence gives you a little bit more ES if you can't afford the ES ones. ES and minion damage tend to be really expensive on standard. Cast speed, attack and cast speed, minion damage, whatever. Attack speed, minion damage, attack and cast speed. A little bit of resistances on this one for some reason. And then minion damage, attack and cast speed. And this one's block and damage and attack and cast speed. So, that's our tree and our jewels. And I guess we go to links next, right? So for your main links, I'm using SRS, Spell Echo, minion damage. So this lets us cast Raging Spirits twice per cast, which is nice. Then we're using minion damage to give them 49% more damage, minion speed so they run faster, and which kind of increases their lifespan when you're SRS, because your duration is what determines like how long they last, but their movement speed determines how much time they waste running between packs. So I feel like that's a very important link. If that's personal preference, you don't have to use that. Then I'm using a level 4 Empower. This is the best damage scaling gem for SRS there is. If you don't have a level 4 Empower, you can use melee physical damage. It'll achieve the same-ish DPS, a little bit less, but it'll do the same thing. And then your last link, use Melee Splash. For single target, if you don't want to use Melee Splash for single target and you feel like it's a little bit slow, you can always throw in a multi-strike in that link. Which is this. This lets your minions attack super fast. The only reason I don't use multi-strike all the time is because I want the AoE from this. And multi-strike means that like when they're attacking and it dies after the first hit, they still spend that last little bit of animation attacking twice in a row. So I tend to not use that for single target. I just put in Melee Phase instead of Melee Splash for my personal 6 link. So that's a 6 link. Movement skill, we are using Shield Charge, Fortify, and Faster Attacks. Because we're using a shield and a claw, we're allowed to use this. And it's pretty quick because of all of our movement speed and our attack speed from all our jewels. It's great. You get to go fast. I'm also using the Scourge, which means it gives a decent amount of DPS, but you get attack speed out of it, and your minions get attack speed out of it. And then increases and reductions to minion damage also affect you, which isn't really relevant for this build, specifically with the last line. 70% increased minion damage if you have hit recently means that whenever I shield charge into a pack and get Fortify through shield charging, I also get 70% increased minion damage, which means that this 340 right here goes up to 410% increased minion damage, which is actually really high for an SRS character. And they also get 15% attack speed if this was a perfect rolled one, so that's nice. Other links, for everything else on this is effectively auras and defensive. So next is the auras. I'm using Haste level 20 because I want to go faster. If you don't want to go faster, you can use Hatred for a little bit more DPS out of your minions. This gives me attack, cast speed, movement speed, and my minions attack, cast speed, and movement speed. So it's kind of nice for like quality of life, basically. Then I'm using a level 3 Enlighten along with Discipline and Clarity. If you don't have an Enlighten, they're relatively cheap and standard for level 3. They're like 10C or something. You can actually drop the Clarity entirely, and then you can drop this without having to worry about it. You can actually probably still run the Clarity. Depending on how much mana you get overall, might be able to run both. Yeah, I can actually run both without the Enlighten. The Enlighten just gives me a little bit more wiggle room, which is helpful. So that's Aura links. Defensive links, we have a couple different layers of defense here. Like we have a cast when damage taken Tempest Shield, which gives us an additional 3% block chance, so that puts us from 36 to 39. And then it's linked to Curse on Hit and Feeble, so every time we block, it chains to 2 enemies. Chains once and then to the next. So that enfeebles them, and it also applies our Elemental Equilibrium keystone, which gives them minus 50% cold and minus 50% fire, which is great if you're using Hatred or if you're just using SRS. Hatred gives your minions cold damage. So that's a good defensive setup, and then I'm also using another layer of defense at the same time, cast when damage taken Immortal Call for those spiky physical damage hits. This gives us immunity to physical damage for about, I want to say 0.75 seconds if I remember right. Let me check. 0.7 seconds. Which is only level 3, sorry, with no investment into the endurance charge generation at all, so that's a pretty good amount of duration for us. And that's also linked to a Desecrate, so that means whenever we take a smaller hit, it spawns Desecrate on the ground for us automatically. So say we're in a boss fight and it's a little scary, this will make sure that you can keep up your Bone Offering for the attack and cast speed, and if you want to be really, really safe, you can take out, your Flesh Offering for the attack and cast speed, you can take it out and put in Bone Offering, and that'll effectively almost cap your attack and spell block, with just switching out one link for boss fights if you need to. But you don't usually need to do that because I have another defensive setup, this 4-link down here, which has cast when damage taken Raise Zombie. Because this spawns bodies all the time, cast when damage taken Raise Zombie has things to target most of the time. It's also linked to Bone Offering, so if we really, really take a big hit, which is 3,272 damage, this will give us the block chance automatically. You can't have 2 offerings active at the same time, but this means most of the time we have Flesh Offering active, so we have the attack and cast speed bonus, and in those oh shit moments when you get hit really hard, it casts your Bone Offering and switches it to the block and spell block, which is nice. It's kind of like an instant swap that you don't have to actually do anything for. And then the last link in this is Summon Stone Golem, which gives us a 103 life regen and a minion with a ton of maximum life. Where is he? There he is. So this is only a level 19 Stone Golem, and he has almost 20,000 max life. So that means when he explodes, he degens everything in a pretty large cloud for almost 2,000 chaos damage a second. He also does about 7k fire damage to surrounding enemies when he dies. And when he doesn't die, he just gives us passive regen. So those are all great things, right? And then other sockets, I have 2 unset rings. One of them is the Flesh Offering that we showed a couple times now. So I can just keep spamming this in the middle of maps. And then this link is a Rallying Cry. It gives me more mana regen, and it gives you and your minions increased damage for the duration. So usually it lasts about 16 seconds in maps, which is a pretty long time. You only have to cast it every couple of packs. So that all being said, what have I done with this build? Oh wait, we have to go over gear. I'm sorry, gear. So I'm using the Scourge, we talked about that. Using a pretty decent ES helm, really good ES helm actually. It's got a lot of ES and resist, that's all I needed out of it, ES and resist. For stun immunity, we're using Eye of Chayula. The Mind's Corrupted with block chance, you don't need that, it just kind of helps you get more defenses out of it if you don't need the stats. Rings, I'm using 2 unsets, we talked about that a little bit. They both have ES, percent ES, and stats and resistances. I needed a little bit of strength, and I needed a little bit of dex, so I got both of those things and resistances on my rings. My shield is mana regen, a bunch of ES, and then resistances and block chance. If it had higher block chance, I'd be a little bit happier, but this is good enough for now. Belt, same thing, ES and resistances with a little bit of move speed if you can get it. You don't need the move speed, but it's just quality of life really. And then gloves, I needed more stats, so I got a lot of dexterity on my gloves along with a lot of ES. Boots are using Rainbow Strides. This allows us to convert all of the block we gain from Bone Offering and from Roomies to Spell Block, which is why we get so much Spell Block. We get almost 50% with Roomies, and then this at the same time will effectively cap our Spell Block. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you. So we cast Desecrate, Bone Offering, and then Roomies, and we're block and spell block capped, with very minimal investment into the actual tree and into our gear. With this. Best in slot enchantments. For gloves, I use Commandment of Light. This is the one that drops Consecrated Ground whenever you take a critical strike, which then gives you a little bit of life regen, and it also regenerates 4% of your max life per second. which for us is a large amount of life. It's like, I don't know, 600 life or so. That's helpful. It deals a little bit of damage, 5k DPS actually, because I'm using the Scourge, so I get the minion damage bonuses, but yeah, it's just like quality of life. If you take a big hit and you get crit by it, it gives you regen instantly, which is really helpful, and your allies, so your minions get the regen as well. Boot enchant, I usually go for the 2% life and mana regen if you've been hit recently enchant, which gives us more mana sustain and more life regen if we're in a fight. And the playstyle is we just literally shield charge into every pack, so we get hit a lot. The enchant is really nice. I have it on my old boots, which are right here. But I switched out for Rainbow Strides because I realized I didn't have quite enough spell blocks, so I'm going to run these through. We're allowed to fix that. Helm enchantments, there's a couple different ones. You can get Summon Raging Spirit, does increased damage. You can get Summon Raging Spirit, has increased duration. Or this one, which is an 18% chance to summon an extra minion. So what this does, because we're using Spell Echo, that one I actually got 2. So Spell Echo casts twice. Because you have, sorry, Raging Spirit is cast twice, so you can cast it once, and you usually get 2. But sometimes, if with the 18%, you can get more than that. Let's see if I can get it to proc. So that last one we got 3, I think. Let me let them decay a little bit. But it basically gives you, every time you cast, which is twice, you get 2 separate chances at an 18% chance to summon an extra minion. So that one I got 3. So I hit the 18% once. Occasionally you get 4 minions out of 1 cast, which is really nice. So it helps for like maintaining your overall number of minions given time, right? So that's my favorite enchant, but you don't need that one. So with all of that said, we're going to go ahead and do a T15 Colosseum with Enfeebled Ellie Weakness, Ellie Reflect, Lightning Resist, Poison on hit. Not particularly rippy, but it's a pretty high-end map. It's T15. I have done all the Guardians with this. I did not successfully do Shaper today on stream, which was the goal, but that's okay. I got him through 2nd stage, I just couldn't quite finish. So, when we go and charge into minions, we get 395 minion damage, which is pretty big. Our minions are super fast, due to the Bone Offering and all of our bonuses. And I have Fortify, I have Stone Golem, I have a Zombie, like, it feels pretty good to use. It's pretty fast. And you can see my regen, when I take the crits, it spikes up to 1.8k-ish, which is pretty good. And you go really, really fast. Oh, another thing about the Scourge is, the gem links in your Scourge actually support the Spectral Wolf on kill thing. So I had 3 for a second there, but they're gone. So I'm using Faster Attacks Fortify in that link. So whenever I do get a wolf, it gains Faster Attacks Fortify. Which is kind of dumb, really, but it looks kind of cool. They do a little bit more DPS out of it, and they get to last a little bit longer. But it's kind of hard to proc the kill thing, because you actually have to be the one that deals the killing blow. So it just kind of happens randomly on accident. I think your minion degen and explosions count as kills. And what else? There's one wolf. So we have a wolf. How much damage does he do? It doesn't really say. But he's pretty tame. There he is right there, doing his thing. So I'm just going to try to beeline to the boss real quick. I think we've seen enough gameplay. I guess I can demonstrate the defensive mechanics, so hang on. So you try, if you run into a pack, like say this pack for instance, you just stand here. Desecrate procs when you take a little bit of damage. And when you take more damage, your Bone Offering procs. So you get life regen and block chance. So you kind of stop taking damage at that point. And then your zombies start spawning, your golems start spawning, they're good distractions. And then when you're done taking the damage, you can cast your Flesh Offering and get your attack and cast speed back, if you feel like it's safe enough. Usually if in a boss fight, if I'm scared, I just let the Bone Offering do its work. And I don't recast Flesh Offering, so it stays safe. Now because I'm using Hatred without Generosity, my shield charge actually does cold damage on hit, so it applies E for fire and lightning, which is kind of annoying. If I had added lightning damage to my attacks, it would be a little bit better, but I'm using Hatred instead of Haste right now. I usually use Haste. Wait, no, I am using Haste. How am I doing cold damage? I'm not. I'm high. Sorry guys, if you use Hatred it works that way. I don't usually use Hatred because of that reason. So now we have the boss. We just kind of do our thing. Cast a bunch of SRS. Oh yeah, for single target you put in Melee Fizz instead of Melee Splash. As you can see, I'm not even paying attention. He's already kind of dying. Getting a little bit of lag, but that's okay. It's already at half. The DPS is really strong with this, because you get so much minion damage from all your jewels and your Scourge. Things kind of melt without much effort. So I focused a lot on defensiveness because of that. because the DPS is so good. But yeah, this is the Necromancer Broodmother character that I've been working on the past week or so. I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely Guardian viable, probably Shaper viable if you're not a bad like I am. And the budget, the only required unique is Eye of Chayula. You don't even need to use the Scourge, you can just use a random dagger or claw, it doesn't matter. Or even like a cast speed mace or something. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, ask in the comments below. I know I'm going to get this question actually. Bandits, you choose point, cast speed, point. You don't have to do that, you can just do triple point, but the cast speed's a kind of nice quality of life type thing. So yeah, point, point, point if you need it. Otherwise, do whatever you want. And that will be Demi out. I'll see you guys in game.